Hey y'all, welcome to Heritage Ways, Project 54, episode 45. This is Vintage Suppers Week. We are ending with a classic pot roast. This is just a basic, classic, good pot roast. Call it vintage if you will, because most of us have been making this forever. There's so many different ways to make it, but today we're just keeping it simple and plain in the oven, old-fashioned. So let's get started with a classic pot roast. Hey, before we start, I want to tell you about something, a product. Now, listen, hear me out, y'all, because I only tell y'all about things I love and I'm committed to. I find products I like, and then I seek out ways to be able to tell y'all, okay? If you have those days, ladies, where you know you probably should wash your hair to look presentable, but you really don't have the time or the inclination or the energy sometimes, well, I like to use this dry shampoo. Now, I don't use it a lot, but when I use a dry shampoo, this is the one I use because I like it so very much, because I think it is the best that I have seen. I have tried several different kinds in the past, and quite honestly, this came in like a complimentary pack thing from LILLA Rose. You know I love their hair accessories. This came as a complimentary gift to me. I probably wouldn't have tried it without their sending it to me at no charge. So it came a year or so ago and with some other stuff, and I tried it and I have loved it ever since. It doesn't leave your hair greasy and funky like some of the other dry shampoos. I really am pleased with it. It has a nice fragrance as well. It doesn't take much. It says with natural clay, hold on, gotta read. With natural clay, it adds volume and refreshes. So yes, no parabens, sulfates, or sodium chloride. Color and straightener safe, thermal protectant. So I'm just wanting to let y'all know about this dry shampoo. And like I said, I've used it, I don't know, once in a blue moon do I use dry shampoo, but when I do, I like this brand, and this little bottle of 3 ounces has lasted me at least a couple years, and it's still got a lot in it. So just want to throw that tip out at you, and you can see the link down below in the description box if you want to explore my Heritage Ways Miss Katie LILLA Rose site. Okay, what we're going to start with is just a basic, this is a beef chuck shoulder pot roast, boneless. You can use bone in, that would be absolutely fine. This one happens to be 2.5 pounds. You can use a smaller one or a larger one. This is also called an English cut roast. All right, I've turned my oven on 350. You can have it anywhere between 250 and 350 if you want to. If you want to do a slower roasting process, that is fine. I'm going to be cooking the roast in this cast iron, in this Lodge Dutch oven cast iron pan with the lid. But I'm going to sear it in something a little bit bigger. Now, I'm not going to sear in here because I want plenty of room for my roast to fit in the cast iron, and this pan has a little more surface area than this does. So, no problem. I'll just have to wash this, but that's okay. I could also cook the roast in here if I wanted to by covering it with foil. So, either of those options. Now, to sear is to lock in the flavors and the juices and flavors. You don't have to sear, but it really helps to lock in the flavors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this towel, which will go straight to the laundry when I'm done, so it just keeps me from having to waste paper towels. I'm going to salt and pepper both sides. I'm using fresh ground black pepper. And I don't want to touch the meat and then touch my other things, my utensils and bowls and things. So just be careful with that. So I'm actually just going to kind of press the salt and pepper in. I'm going to turn my my pan on to sear the meat. I'm just going to turn it on medium to medium high. It's time for a hospitality tip. It's probably best to have fewer dishes to serve your company, but make sure you have plenty of each item. Now I put just a little bit of grease in the bottom of this. This is lard, probably a tablespoon. But I've been known to sear without any grease in the pan either. Alright, so again, we're just salt and peppering both sides. I think I'm going to use the finer pepper on this side because the coarse didn't adhere very well. Okay, now I want this to get really, really hot, almost smoking hot. And then I'm going to put the roast in there. I am not going to touch it or move it. And I'm going to wait a couple of minutes, maybe 1 to 2 minutes. And then I'm going to turn it over. And the result will be really super browned on both sides, and that's called searing, locking in the juices and the flavor. Then I'm going to turn it, put it in this cooking vessel. So you could use another kind of Dutch oven. You could use a roasting pan. Like I said, you could even roast it in the cast iron skillet and cover with foil. So there's different options there. I'm going to go ahead and put a little pure water in the bottom of this. Probably what amounts to about a ½ inch of water, probably. Yeah. Because this is going to produce a lot of broth. The juices are going to let loose and it's going to be great. Now, in my cookbook, let me stop and say, I'm writing my second cookbook that should be out soon, Lord willing. And I have how to cook a pot roast. I think it's either 2 or 3 ways. And another way is in the crock pot. And I will tell you, when I cook it in the crock pot, I do not put any liquid. And the other day when I cooked a roast in the crock pot with no added liquid, I ended up with a quart of broth after it was over. All right, I'm going to go ahead while I'm waiting on that to sear. I want the pan to be super hot. I'm going to add 3 bay leaves because I just always use the number 3 because that way we know how many to fish out. That's just what I do. I'm going to put some onions. This is half of a Vidalia onion in the bottom. Kind of also serves as like a roasting rack, kinda. You could also go ahead and put your carrots in the bottom of this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to wait and cook the roast for an hour or so and then add the carrots. And you can add potatoes as well, but we'll talk about all that here in a little bit. So let's sear the meat. Alright, that was roughly 3 or 4 minutes on each side. So you can tell that it's seared on both sides. I'm just moving it right over here. I could have seared it in this and that would have been fine, but I wasn't sure if I'd have enough room. All right, that's it. Now turn that off. And I think I need some fresh herbs. So I'm going to run out to the garden to get those real quick. All right. So I went outside and I got a cayenne pepper because I thought that'd be nice in there. And I have basil and oregano and thyme and flat leaf parsley, and rosemary. And I'm just going to put those around the edge. The steam will impart those essential oils into the broth. Also, I'm going to add what amounts to about 2 tablespoons of my homemade French onion soup mix. It's kind of a classic thing to do for a pot roast, especially during Vintage Suppers Week. I do have this in my first cookbook, and I also have this a video of this that I will try to link to this video. So that is it. That's all we're going to do. Like I mentioned to you, as far as cookbooks, my second cookbook does have how to cook this, but you might want to snag the first cookbook first. I'm trying not to overlap any of my recipes in my cookbooks, so each one is going to have different content. So a lot of the Project 54 videos that I have made are in my first cookbook. A lot are in the cookbook that I'm finishing up right now. So link down below for the first cookbook. Gonna put this in the oven. And we'll turn it on for an hour. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to add carrots and potatoes, and I'll probably cook it for another hour. I will be testing to see if the meat is tender and falls apart easily, and it should. Now, if you want to cook it on 250 or 300, if you have a longer period of time than I do right now, that is good and probably preferable. So it would probably take, if it was on 250 or 300, it would probably take almost double the time. Maybe not quite. Alright, it has been 1 hour, and we're going to add the carrots. Smells delicious. I'll tell you, it started smelling delicious about 20 minutes in. Alright, I bet you want to look inside. Okay. Here we go. Always open. If something it's going to have steam, open it away from you. You don't want to have a facial, an unintended facial. Alright, and I have 3 carrots that I have washed. See, there is a lot more liquid than what we started with. Okay, I'm going to estimate we're going to need another hour to 2 hours. Alright, after 1 hour, see, it's not easily pulled apart at all. So, after 1 hour, 350. We're going to put it in there for another hour. It's out of the oven, 350, 2 hours total so far. Open it away from you. Carrots are done. Meat pulls apart just fine. Now, is it done? Can it be eaten? Yes. At this point, the smaller pieces there on the ends, they pull apart just fine. It's ready to eat now. These parts that don't pull apart as easily, it's still done. It could be sliced or cut apart, but it will not hurt it if you were to put it another 30, 45 minutes even. That would be fine as well. But this is ready, our classic pot roast. Alright, there we have our pot roast with our carrots, and I have mashed potatoes that we will talk about next week, how to get the most perfect mashed potatoes, and a little bit of gravy on top. Mr. Patient likes roast beef with hot sauce. It's also great with a horseradish sauce. You can make mix horseradish and mayonnaise. But let me get a little bit of everything. That is very good. And I love the carrots too. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next week for canning season week. Talk to you later. Have a great weekend. Whose idea was it to make all these videos in the heat of summer? Ballsy. Classic pot roast is one of these things that everybody makes differently, and probably each cook makes differently, just like I do. So it's just kind of one of these things we do by rote, do without thinking, and these are the hardest recipes to share. Classic pot roast. Yeah. That is very good. I thank you for being here for yet another week. We have 4 more episodes. No, we don't. That's not right. I thank y'all for being here. I thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next week for canning.